I've been here many times before, and I'm still waiting for you to walk through that door. Come out, where are you hiding out? I got something to say to you that I don't know about. Come out, where are you hiding out? I got something to say to you, but I don't know how.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, everybody.
I am Ben Soto here with my brother.
Justin Soto. How's everybody doing?
Doing good. All right. So happy Saturday. Hope you're having a good one. Today we're going to talk about, we're going to review Jeff Saylor's, I think he calls them the Alien Chronicles. So that's what I called him on the video card.
Is it okay?
Yeah.
So I've never heard him speak before.
That's
I've
what
heard you talk about it.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. I was going to ask you if you've ever heard these videos before. So
Mm-hmm.
that's awesome. I'm glad you haven't. I have, but it's been like 2 years now that I listened to them. And he just recently came back like a month ago and started posting videos again.
Mm-hmm.
And he's such a great storyteller. You're going to see in these videos. But I'm so glad you haven't heard him, so we can get like a real reaction from someone who hasn't heard them.
Yeah. All right.
And they're really short videos. They're like 4.5 to 5 minutes long.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So we will probably run through like 5 or 6 of them.
So he really just does tell like a story, and then that's the whole video.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. All right.
Yeah. So no, I thought that would be fun. If you're new to the channel, you're watching now, please like and subscribe. That way you get notified whenever we post videos. Thanks for joining us. And so let's get this started. Add to the stream.
Before you hit play, you want to tell us a little bit about Jeff Saylor's, like who he is, or is he gonna cover that at all in the video?
You know, I personally don't know too much about him, other than he worked at a ranch, Buffalo Ranch in Colorado, and that's where a lot of these strange events happened. Mm-hmm. There was like UFOs, there was things happening inside of his house, kind of paranormal activity kind of things, which I thought was pretty interesting. But it's all related. He does talk about that a little bit, that, you know, how old he was when these things happened. And I think he was like the foreman of this ranch.
Oh, okay. All right. Around, do you remember what time period this would have been, like before or after the Gorman stuff?
Oh, yeah, that I don't know in comparison. Yeah, I'm not sure. And again, this is Buffalo Ranch, Colorado. This is
Buffalo Ranch. I thought you said Skinwalker. Yeah.
No. Yeah, this is not. This is separate from Skinwalker Ranch.
Yeah.
I know it's easy to confuse the two because they're both ranches.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, this is different. This is in Colorado, not the Uinta Basin.
Okay. All right.
So let's get this going. Oh, I lost my player. Hold on a second. There we go.
Some years ago, I moved back to Colorado from Montana. I'd been up there for 20-some years. Business, my horsehair business, brought me back to Colorado. And I came down here to do a show at a really nice restaurant with a Western gift shop and Western clothing. And the ranch owner's wife had opened this place, and they were carrying my horsehair. So I came down to meet them and see about doing business. And one thing led to another, and I ended up moving out to the Buffalo Ranch and becoming the foreman on that place. The foreman of a one-man crew. So it wasn't much of a title, but it was a heck of a ranch, 15,000 acres and 1,200 buffalo and a feedlot operation. And I've told a story before about a dog I had that saved me from getting mauled to death by a buffalo. But there were some real weird things happened on that ranch over the 9 years that I was there. And it had started about 3 years before I got there, and they blamed it on aliens. Now, I'll say right up front, I never did see an alien or a spaceship, but I saw things that were just absolutely bewildering over the years. things that happened there, the buffalo mutilations and everything else, they always started in March and they'd run through October, and then that was it. Nothing for the winter. And I think I moved down there in January or February, and I heard a few stories about mutilations and this and that, and kind of took it with a grain of salt. Anyway, I'd been there, well, I don't know, 3 months maybe. I'm sure it was sometime in March. And had a girlfriend come out from town, and we spent the day riding horses and looking at buffalo and just having a good old time. We'd gone to bed that night, and it was a nice spring day, you know, spring evening, just beautiful. And we're sound asleep, and sometime in the middle of the night, the most horrific wind hit that house, and lightning flashing so bright you could see the bones in your fingers. And I mean, that wind was howling. I had the bedroom window cracked about that far, but not another window in the house was open for a breeze to flow through. And that wind was blowing big framed artwork off the wall, a set of moose antlers that was nailed to a log wall. And I mean, it was some of the scariest sounds I ever heard. And I didn't know what to do. All I could think was tornado. And I grabbed that gal and rolled out of bed and rolled into a closet. No basement in the house. And I thought, this is our only shelter. But I really had any misgivings about surviving it, because it was just that horrendous, that wind and the house shaking. I don't know how long it went on, 2, 3, 4 minutes, seemed like an eternity, of course, when that stuff's happening. And then it just quit as fast as it started. Just, I mean, dead calm and no flashing lights. And I jumped up and ran outside, and I don't imagine it took me 3, 4 seconds. I had to jump over artwork and moose horns and everything else that were laying on the floor. I ran out that kitchen window and looked up at the sky, and I could see every star in 360 degrees for 20 miles. Not a cloud in the sky, not a breeze blowing. It was the damnedest thing I'd ever seen. And come morning, first light, I went outside. And where my house sat in the middle of that ranch, it was about a 3-4 acre yard. And we had the buffalo sorting pens, an old barn, the shop where we repaired stuff in my house. And on either side of that 4-acre yard was an auto gate or a cattle guard, you know, and you had to drive through there to get anywhere else on the ranch. And of course, once a week, the buffalo would come through there and churn it all up. And anybody that driven through, you could see their tracks. So I went out there in the morning after that violent windstorm and lightning, and it looked like nobody'd set foot in that yard for 50 years. And I walked over to the first auto gate, and I could see my girlfriend's tire tracks coming in from the night before. And right at that auto gate, they disappeared, and the wind had scoured everything. So I circled the house, and it was about a 300, 400-foot circle all the way around that house, just blown clean like nobody'd been there in 100 years. So I started paying a little more attention to the stories of the mutilations and things after that. And that was really my first encounter, and I wanted to tell people that story right off the bat. Come on back and tell you some stories of some really bizarre stuff once I found the mutilations and everything else going on.
So what do you think?
Pretty cool. I like that.
Yeah, he's a great storyteller.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he's got a very like genuine kind of personality too. He doesn't seem to like embellish his stories the way a lot of people tend to whenever they tell these kinds of stories.
Right.
It's very matter of fact. He kind of reminds me honestly of like the kind of older person that I would have worked with at Cabela's or something.
Oh, really?
Yeah, just very like I would say like maybe a humble personality or something like that.
Yeah.
Or just, you know, like I said, very matter of fact kind of a person. Yeah, but no, that's really interesting. Like I said, I kind of like his personality. It's very easy to listen to.
Yeah.
Good storyteller for sure, but like, yeah, you don't get the sense that he's leading you to any conclusions necessarily. He's just kind of telling you what he saw.
Right. The facts as they were.
Right.
As he experienced them.
Right. Just what he saw, just what he experienced. He'll let you fill in the rest of the details if you want to. But
right.
Yeah, I do like that. He's good.
Yeah. So what'd you think of that story though? Like that wind blowing?
The wind that was actually
tracks.
Yeah. You know what's funny is I just watched Nope yesterday.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
What'd you think?
Reminded me of that a little bit. It was all right. It was almost good.
Almost.
It was all right. I think he showed the creature too much.
Yeah.
My taste. I think he tried to explain a little too early what it was, or maybe, just like I said, maybe just showed it a little too much. I think I would have been happy if the only time you really saw it was that kind of grainy photo that she got at the end of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Spoilers, I guess. I don't know if that's even really a spoiler, but
That's been out a couple of years now, so
it's been out a couple of years. A pretty popular movie. But no, like, yeah, whenever like the windstorms would pick up and it would move in the clouds of like, that's how it would kind of hide itself or camouflage itself. So, like that's kind of what that makes me think of, is like something kind of moving through the wind, but there were no clouds. There was no, there was nothing in the air. Hey, GJ's here.
yeah. Hey, he says he can finally put a face to Justin. That's awesome. I didn't realize he'd never seen you before.
I'm sorry. Yeah, this was.
He's like, I'm sorry, this is what I look like.
Sorry, but yeah, this is the best I could do. It was a dark room.
Yeah, no, he's very genuine, very sincere storyteller, like just a good old boy,
Yeah.
All right, so let's you ready for the next one?
Yeah, let's go to the next one.
All right, you got any more comments on this one?
No, I can't think of anything else that like this really reminds me. Well, maybe like have you heard of the Kwai? It's in the Gobi Desert. Like there's a legend about like these spirits that move in the wind and dust storms and stuff.
Yeah, I have.
Yeah, kind of reminds me of that a little bit too. That's the only other thing it made me think of.
Yeah, what I thought was interesting is like most UFO stories, like people say we didn't hear an engine.
Yeah,
like there was no sound, there was nothing. But here it's like the experience, like this really strong storm, gust, strong winds that cleared out the dirt. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah,
it's different because it makes you wonder: is it man-made? Then was this like the government testing out a reverse engineered?
Yeah,
version.
I wonder how much of it is, like, because that's where you would test this stuff. I watched Oppenheimer a few weeks ago. And they picked out this spot in the desert that's like very remote. There's nothing else going on. And I'm like, I wonder if they still do that with like these types of technologies where like there's one or two people around. No one's going to believe them if they see anything. We can test it out here,
Yeah. These backwood yokels. No one's going to believe them.
Exactly. And I wonder if that's part of like why there's a little bit of an effort to make people that live off the grid seem like they're kooky or,
right,
a little extremist or something like that, is because they don't want people to believe them if they say they see anything out there.
Conspiracy theorists.
Yeah.
All right. GJ's already creeped out. All right, DJ, we're gonna try and take it further.
We're gonna push it to the limit, like that 80s song.
That's right. Okay. Set string. Here's the next one. This one's titled Jeff Taylor Presents the Alien Chronicles. So I don't know. I'm not sure if this is like an overview, but it was the next one in line. So I'm going to go ahead and play it. Oh, hold on a second.
Okay.
I forgot. I hit the mute. Yeah, I hit the mute button.
Howdy, folks. Got some more disturbing stories about the Buffalo Ranch. Aliens, I'll call them. Like I said, I never laid eyes on one, but I saw some of the damnedest thing done to buffalo and the lights we chased and such. So I'm calling this the Alien Chronicles, and I got 20 or 30 more stories. So one recurrent thing that happened every summer, and not every night that we were out there chasing the lights and a dead buffalo or this or that, but at least once or twice every summer, you'd wake up in the middle of the night and have loud rock and roll music playing. Now, my house sat in the middle of 15,000 acres. That ranch was almost a perfect square, so I was a long ways from the neighbors. Couldn't see any lights, couldn't hear dogs barking. And all of a sudden, you'd wake up and there'd be Jim Morrison from the Doors or Led Zeppelin singing Stairway to Heaven, and I mean the glass would be vibrating in my windows. You couldn't tell where it was coming from. It was so dang loud, Well, I'd jump up and get in a truck and grab an assault rifle and my Russian night vision goggles and get out there and go looking for things. And of course, I never did find anything, but it was, like I say, a recurring thing. So one night I get woken up, and instead of rock and roll music, it's bird calls. And I mean loud bird calls. And every bird call I have ever heard, and tropical sounding stuff that I'd never heard, I'd seen it on TV or whatnot. And I know birds. I've been a bird watcher my whole life. I started doing bird taxidermy when I was 12 years old. And then I worked with a licensed bander up in Montana, and we trapped close to 100 eagles, owls, hawks, and ospreys. And I did all the climbing for them. So I got to handle a lot of birds, and I know bird calls. Well, these were calls I'd never heard. So anyhow, I run around that ranch for a couple hours that night, and it'd take 6 hours on a dirt bike to run that perimeter fence, and all day in a pickup truck. And I was probably out there 3 or 4 hours, checked a lot of perimeter gates. They were all locked up. No tracks, no sign, nothing. Of course, the bird calls would stop. So I got home, went back to bed. And I told you a story about that great old dog, Mooner, that saved me from a buffalo mauling. Well, he was in the house, and he was a hell of a watchdog. If somebody turned off the county road 1.5 miles away to come in that ranch, he knew it. And he'd bark and whine and let me know someone was coming. And I just happened to be babysitting a blue heeler for a young kid. He did day work on the ranch, and he still lived with mom and dad, and they told him he couldn't have a dog. Well, of course, he went out and got one anyway, and he had this little blue heeler pup, and he'd left him at my house every night when he went home to his folks' house. So I got these 2 pretty good cow dogs in the house. And the bird calls, and I'm kind of tired and everything that night, and go to bed. And I get up in the morning, and I'm stumbling out and through the living room, going in the kitchen to build a pot of coffee. And I come around the corner, and I mean, my breath just went out. I just seized up everything in my refrigerator, and I mean down to little Tabasco hot sauce bottles and every egg out of the carton, every condiment in the door. Everything was in a 6-foot triangle on my kitchen floor. Now, the triangle has a lot of bearing on these stories because whenever they killed and mutilated a bull buffalo, they'd paint a big orangish red triangle on the forehead. And when they killed and mutilated a cow and cut the reproductive organs or pulled the fetus out of her, they'd always leave that orange triangle on the rib cage of the cow. So I stumble into that kitchen, and here's everything in my refrigerator on that floor. And I'm thinking, how did anything get past those 2 cow dogs? Because old Mooner, he'd have never let anybody in that house. And so I started to ease through that kitchen, let the dogs out, and they wouldn't cross that kitchen floor. They just looked at me like, no way. And they didn't whine or cry or act sheepish. They just would not come in that kitchen. So I took them out to the living room and let them go out like that. But I got to tell you, that was a pretty disturbing thing. And I became a real light sleeper after that. I went out and looked around, and I'm no African bushman, but I can read sign, and I've bow hunted since I was 12. And I never found a track. No matter where I went or no matter what happened on that ranch, there was never any sign. I'm pretty handy with reading signs. Anyhow, that was a pretty wild night and an even wilder morning. And come on back, and I'll tell you more stories about the disturbing things of the alien Chronicles.
What did you think of that one?
I would have left. Right?
Yeah, I'm with GJ here. Like, get out of here.
Nope, I'm not sticking around for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting. That's it's like Skinwalker Ranch. Whenever that woman was putting away her groceries, she left the room, came back, all of the groceries were back out. Poltergeist activity. Yeah, that's really interesting. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I agree, GJ. That was weird. Can you imagine walking out into your kitchen area and everything is pulled out of your refrigerator?
Mm-hmm.
You're the only person that lives there, and all your stuff's out on the floor in the shape of a triangle. And the only thing you can correlate that triangle with is cattle mutilation. Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be freaky.
Also weird, the dog didn't pick anything up. Dogs are really good about picking up strangers, especially if they're, they've been on that property for a while. They feel very territorial of it, so they're protective. But yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, I hadn't heard too many stories about triangles being put on, or any kind of symbols being put on cattle mutilated animals, but that's interesting.
I'd only heard it like maybe once. I didn't know that was like a common thing. I kind of heard it once, and then it kind of I thought I never heard about it again, so I didn't know it was something that kind of continued. But that is interesting. I had never heard of that. The triangle reminds me of Predator. Whenever he has that laser sight triangle.
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah. GJ says I would literally put everything back while whistling. Yeah, you're trying to keep your spirits up. Nothing to see here.
I just like turn around and walk back out the door in my car, and then just never come back. All right, see you later. Come on, boy, we're going home.
Grab my keys. We're out of here. No, yeah. So that was, that one's one of my favorite ones because that is creepy.
Yeah,
because it's not like just outside; it's in your house, whatever it was.
Yeah,
physically moving things in your house.
And I think I missed this part. How long did it take? Like the time he was gone to the time he came back?
Oh, so that was overnight. That he went out.
Overnight.
Yeah, so he went out, looked around for 3 hours, came back, went to bed, woke up, and everything was out in his kitchen.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. All right. Ready for the next one?
Let's go.
All right. How are you liking these?
I like them. They're really interesting. I like that they're very short, but like concise. I do like the conciseness of the story. It's just the story.
Yeah. All right, here we go.
Afternoon, folks. Got some more alien chronicles to tell you about today. There were so many strange things happened on that Buffalo Ranch over the 9 years I was there. I could go on for days, but I'm going to try and tell these stories in a chronological order that they actually happened. So this was long about that first summer that I was
awesome,
there.
GJ.
I'd already seen a half a dozen of the mutilated buffalo, and I got to tell you, that was some bizarre stuff. Whenever they killed a bull buffalo, they'd take the penis out of the sheath, and the penis on a buffalo is a good 3 foot long. And the sheath, the skin casing, I'll call it, that the penis is in.
That's substantial.
I checked the text on my phone. I came back, and this was a very different video.
We're still talking about aliens, right? All right, here we go.
Grows right to the belly of the buffalo, and it's a good 3 foot long. In fact, it's long enough that when we'd slaughter those buffalo for meat, some guy had to save those penises, and he'd dry them and make golf putter handles out of them. So that just gives you an idea how long these penises were.
Who's the real
that
monster?
Sheath runs all the way back to the scrotum behind the hind legs. And they would paint that orange-red triangle. Here we are again with the triangle deal. And they would remove that penis out of the sheath. And for the life of me, I don't know how. And I've skinned well over 1,000 big game animals. And I did a lot of taxidermy, so I've opened up animals from every end and every direction. And they would remove that penis from the base without ever making a cut in that sheath. So they had to reach down in there somehow almost 3 feet to sever that penis and pull it out of that sheath. And I don't know how they did it. There's no blood, no marks, nothing. And on the cows, they'd do some pretty serious surgery. They'd make an elliptical cut on her belly, shaped like that. And one side was always clean and bloodless and sharp, like cut with a scalpel. And the other side was always ragged and crusty and smelled burnt. And then they'd almost always take the fallopian tubes out, and occasionally the uterus too. But no matter what they took out of it, all those cows were always pregnant. If they killed one early in the spring, they'd pull the fetus out, no bigger than that, a little hairless thing, and lay it on the rib cage of that dead cow and paint a triangle on it. And if they killed one later in the year, like October, the calf would be much bigger and have hair on it, and that calf would be pulled out, and it would have an orange triangle painted on it. So after, a half a dozen of those, you start paying attention to what the hell's going on that ranch. So the general manager lived about a mile away from me in another house. And I don't know how to describe him. He wasn't the boldest man, maybe is the best way to say it. And he was pretty freaked out about all this stuff. And of course, he was responsible for running the ranch. I was basically the hired man. But he had a girlfriend that had some health issues with her hips. And she needed help getting up and down and things like that. So one night she was doing a sleepover at his house, and she woke him up in the middle of the night, had to go to the bathroom, and he helped her get up. She went and did her business, and he helped her get back in bed. Now, this house of his was 5,000 square feet. I don't know how many bedrooms and this and that, but it was a big house. And they go back to sleep, and he wakes up a couple hours later, and every light in that house was on, including the nightstand lights on either side of that bed. And like I say, he wasn't the boldest man in the world. And he got on the phone and called me, and he was some kind of upset. So I waited till first light to run up there. And he waited till first light to go outside, too. So he walks outside of his house, and he had a little detached garage they used for the office on the ranch. And here's a knife, a fork, and a spoon in a triangle on the threshold of that door. Here we are back to the triangle deal. And he called me back just as I was leaving in the house and told me what had happened, and it was his silverware. So I open up my door and walk out, and there's one on my threshold of my door, one on the horse barn, one on the shop, and seems like there was another one at another outbuilding there, but that was some bizarre stuff. And I run up to his house, and he hadn't touched it. They were all laid out just perfect, and that was pretty unnerving.
Yeah.
Now, these are some pretty disturbing stories, and it just gets worse from here on out. Next story I'm going to tell is about our sheriff out in that county. I think I'll leave him nameless, but he was a hell of a lawman, best one I ever knew. And he ended up leaving his job on account of getting surrounded by aliens one night. So come on back and hear the rest of these stories about the Alien Chronicles.
All right. So does he or does anyone ever get into like what the triangle was made out of? Like he said they painted with an orange red, but is it paint? Is it blood? Is it an unknown substance?
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, it gets worse. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Why? Why wouldn't you just leave?
Just get in your car and go, man. Just
Why don't the stories just stop?
Yeah, no, that would be unnerving. Imagine waking up and just seeing those triangles everywhere outside of every building.
I think that's, to me, even creepier than seeing like all of my stuff in my fridge aligned like that, is to see like that symbol just start like popping up different places. Like, what are you marking? Like,
Right.
Is it just like psychological? Are you just playing with me, or are you marking specific spots? Is it something important?
I'd start wearing a chastity belt, right? With a cup.
Something.
With an iron lock on it.
Just one of those like 1800 like body suits that they used to go to sleep in.
Yeah.
See me up. So like the significance of the triangle is kind of interesting, and this is maybe something, maybe nothing, but the Illuminati, the all-seeing eye, all that stuff, like that triangle symbol is very prominent in that culture. I wonder if did they get it from these aliens? Is there a connection there, you know?
Yeah, no, I don't know. It could be. Yeah, it could be some kind of well, you know my theory. There's something demonic about these aliens. So
Yeah.
And the Illuminati, I think, is also like a satanic cult in a sense. So yeah, I mean, it could be.
I just wonder like what that triangle actually means, you know? Is it some kind of perversion of like the Godhead, the three in one, three points of it, you know? I don't know.
Oh yeah, it could be. Yeah, I'm not sure. But yeah, still, it's very unnerving to.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if seeing the triangle outside of my house is as unnerving as seeing it inside my house on my kitchen floor.
Right. Yeah.
But I guess seeing it everywhere outside, the way they did, like outside every single building of the ranch, like that would be freaky.
That is freaky. And I never, like, kind of like we were just talking about, like, I didn't know that symbol or the triangle or, you know, this kind of thing would happen in association with cattle mutilation. They would mark it with a triangle. And I'm wondering what that still wonder what that mark means. Is it supposed to be some kind of sacrifice, like you mark your sacrifice or something like that? That's the only thing I can think of.
I mean, it could be.
Yeah.
Very well could be. Yeah, I'm not sure. But yeah, it sounds like the way he was describing the mutilation, it just sounds like it's torture, you know?
It
Like
does, yeah.
Like there's nothing scientific about it, or they're just being cruel.
Yeah, and that's like one of the worst kinds of like horror movies for me is like, well, you've seen Looper, right? You remember that scene where like they're just like dismembering this dude, like at the beginning, and it like goes through time, and like he just starts like losing limbs all over the place.
Yeah, I do remember that. Yeah,
that for a movie that wasn't a horror movie, that scarred me so bad to see that happen. Like you just like start losing things, and like that kind of body torture, it, like really gets to me. I don't know what it is, but just the idea of like they just start like surgically removing things from you, and it just feels very. It's so cold and it's so like disturbing. You know, I don't know what it is. I haven't ventured into the psyche of why I fear it so much, but yeah, that's horrible.
No, yeah, it's just cruel and sadistic.
Yeah.
All right, you ready for the next one?
I think so.
GJ, are you ready for the next one?
We'll see if GJ can handle it. If GJ's out, I'm out.
Okay, this one, if I remember correctly, this one is kind of a fun one. This one, like there's a whole bunch of orbs flying around, and the sheriff comes in to start chasing them. And I think that's what he gets surrounded by, if I remember correctly. Again, it's been like 2 years since I listened to these. But all right, here we go. You ready?
Yeah.
Howdy, folks. Well, here's a story I promised to tell you about a wonderful lawman we had, the sheriff out in the county where that buffalo ranch was at. He was as good a lawman as I ever met, and I grew up with cops. My dad was one for 35 years, and I grew up fishing with nothing but cops, and then my son became a cop after college, so I've been around a lot of lawmen, both good and bad, and when I tell you this Wally was as good a lawman as I ever saw, you can take that to the bank. So he'd been out there chasing those glowing green lights for 2 or 3 summers, maybe 4 summers when this particular night happened. And I think there was 27 different nights that we had deputies and the sheriff out chasing these lights that got recorded and went in the newspaper and everything else. Now, when I speak of these lights, they weren't in the sky. They looked like old Jeep headlights, and it was always a single, and it was the color of night vision goggles, you know, that lime green kind of luminescent stuff. And well, Wally, he'd been out there a number of times and helped us chase that stuff, and this man was fearless. So he called up one night and said he was going to just drive through the ranch, and he had a ride along. Now, with all the nonsense that was going on that ranch, I had a ranch radio. Actually, we had 2 different frequencies of ranch radios, and I had a sheriff's department radio because we had them out there so much with these mutilations and whatnot. So, well, he called one night and said he had a ride along, and he was going to drive out to the farm ground. And anywhere you went on that ranch, you had to come through my yard, that 3-4 acre yard where the pens were and such. And we kind of had some hard and fast rules when people were on that ranch because so many weird things were going on. So if somebody was out there at night looking around or chasing aliens and stuff, you don't want anybody else out there because you don't know what kind of gunfight might have erupted, you know. So Wally called and said he was going out to the farm ground on the north end of the ranch. It was a good 4 or 5 miles from my house. And he had a ride along, and I told him I'll stay in the house, you know, no deal. It was a weeknight anyway. I was sitting there reading a book, and I saw him come through the yard and headed out. And it was kind of rolling country. You really couldn't see his headlights or taillights. You could see the glow of them every once in a while. So he'd been out there about an hour, and all of a sudden that radio come alive. And I mean, clicks and static, and he's yelling, and I could hear his ride along in the background yelling. And I mean, to tell you, my heart stopped, and I'm calling, you know, Wally, what's going on? And click and crackle and static and then silence. And I'm what do I do? What do I do? You know, do I go after him? And we made the rules, you know, when somebody's out there, they don't want anybody else interfering or chasing somebody they shouldn't. When these mutilations first started, the ranch owner gave us a big chunk of money, and we had AK-47 semi-auto rifles with Russian night scopes. We had Chinese night vision goggles. And I mean, this was serious stuff. By the time they'd killed 25, 30 buffalo, you're looking at close to $50,000 in losses. So I'm standing there with this semi-auto assault rifle, got my night vision goggles, and I'm standing out by the gate, and I don't know what to do. Do I go after Wally, or do I just stay in the house? And finally that radio comes alive again, and he goes, Jeff. And I click back and go, I hear you, what's up? And he goes, I'm effing surrounded. I guess I'm out of here. And the radio went dead. And, you know, I'm calling him back and nothing. And I said, now what the hell do I do? And finally, off in the distance, about 2 miles, I could see the glow of his headlights up in the sky when he'd come over a hill. So I knew he was coming towards me. And so I'm standing there locked and loaded, and my finger on a very light trigger, and just wondering what's going on. And finally, he comes over the last hill, no more than maybe 100 yards max from my gate where I'm standing there. And he comes over the hill, and I could see those Jeep headlights. He was in a Wagoneer. As soon as he breaks over that hill, here's 6 of those alien lights behind him, 3 on each side in a half circle, and they were right on his butt. So now I don't know what to do for sure. You know, I'm thinking they're going to get me too, you know. And so I just stepped out of the gate, and Wally come through, and he had a 45 in both hands out either window, and he's driving with his knee. And that old boy that was along on the ride along, he scrunched down the seat, and he ain't making a sound. And Wally drives this far past me, and he don't even look at me. He just keeps driving. And just as he hit that gate, the first 2 lights went out, then the next 2, and the back 2. and Wally didn't stop. He just took off, you know. And I'm more than freaked out. I mean, to tell you, standing there all by myself in the middle of this ranch with these lights that just went out. But anyway, I get back to the house, and again, that was a pretty sleepless night. Now, this was in October, and Wally was up for re-election in the November elections, and he was a shoo-in. I mean, everybody in the county loved him. This guy was a good lawman. And that night, he didn't show up to work for about a week, 5, 6 days, something like that. And then the 5th or 6th, 7th day, whatever it was, he come in and turned his car in, his unit, that Jeep. And then he withdrew from the election. And I never talked to Wally about what went on. I'd see him in a restaurant, and his wife was actually dispatcher at that time for the sheriff's department. And I'd see him and walk up and say hello, and they were always cordial, and they'd just stand up and leave wherever I run into him. This went on for several years. And finally, 4 or 5 years later, a common friend put us together. And he wanted us to talk about it. He was all intrigued by the alien stuff. We sat there and visited, drinking coffee for probably 3 hours, and never said a word about those aliens and the lights and everything. And he never did mention what happened that night. Finally, we worked around to the subject, and he didn't have much to say. You know, this third party said, do you believe in aliens? And he says, I believe in what I saw. And he looked at me and he says, how about you? And I said, I don't know either. I never saw one, but something weird happened out there for 9 years. And that was the only discussion Wally and I ever had. Poor old devil died not too long after that of the cancer. But that was a heck of a story, I'll tell you.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I wonder if he had cancer before that. Those orbs.
Yeah, I don't know, because I do hear stories about people who get attacked by orbs or around orbs, and they end up getting cancer.
Yeah.
But they must have some kind of radiation.
Yeah, something. Yeah, that's really interesting. I like that story. That was a good story. Yeah.
Was that the 4th or the 5th one? I can't remember now.
I think that was 4.
That was 4? Okay.
Yeah.
So what are your impressions so far?
So far, yeah, I think I stand by him being pretty genuine about it. Again, he doesn't seem to embellish, but he does. He is a good storyteller. He tells like the more significant parts of the story. rolls it right along. Yeah, it is. I don't know if I would have made like very different decisions to stay. I mean, I joke about like just getting out of there the weirder it gets, but honestly, there's a part of me, and this is just like my personality, is like I would want to know. Like I
Right.
want
Yeah.
to investigate this a little bit. Like I need to know if I'm, what I'm dealing with, because there's that part that, obviously we have this show. I'm intrigued by this kind of stuff. So like
Right.
I might stick around. At the same time, if I felt like I was like in real genuine danger, I don't know that I would. I don't know if I would have had the grit that this guy does. Uh, but that's one thing that I really do admire about like these types of people is that they can go out there and they expect a hard life to live on a farm or a ranch or something like that. They put
Yeah.
together all this work, and it's not easy, and it takes a lot of time and money and energy, but they're very devoted to it. So when stuff like this starts to happen, I get they're not gonna back out so easy. It's
Right.
their
Yeah.
livelihood.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, I think that also goes to like the type of person that wouldn't really make up a story.
True.
They're very matter of fact kind of people.
Salt of the earth. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like their means of making money is with their hands. It's not telling a story.
exactly. Yeah. So yeah, I think I'm believing this guy. I do. Yeah.
No, I do too. He seems very sincere. It's just it's
Mhm.
crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy experiences because you hear about this kind of stuff happening on like San Walker Ranch, for example.
Mhm.
But it makes you wonder like how many other places are these types of things going on.
Mhm.
And I know it's something we talked about with where we lived growing up in Texas, Fiesta Drive or Siesta
Yeah.
Drive.
Siesta. Yeah. It's creepier, I guess. Siesta. Sleep
Yeah.
drive. Or nappy time drive.
Yeah. This guy has me at the edge of my seat, right? No, he's a great
Yeah.
storyteller. Yeah,
Yeah,
he's
man.
very matter of fact, very honest. Yeah.
Mhm.
No, but I kind of remembered like that night that we saw the flash of light in the sky at Siesta
Yeah.
Drive.
Mhm.
It was like a summer night. We're outside in the swimming pool in our backyard, and all of a sudden, this white bluish light just streaks across the sky with the loudest sonic boom. Probably about, I don't know. It wasn't over our houses. I would say it was level with the tops of our houses.
Probably about 20 feet, 30 feet,
Probably not even. I would say like 15 feet, 10 to
15
15,
feet. Okay.
10 to 15 feet. Because I
Mhm.
mean, it was a single story house.
It was a single story house. We didn't have an attic at all, right? Or like a crawl space up there.
No, we didn't.
Okay.
Oh, GJ says my kid saw something strange recently. What did they
Oh,
see, GJ? I'd love to hear it.
yeah.
Um, yeah, so we had this loud sonic boom, and this blue streak of light just streak across, just down the street because we
Mhm.
lived on a cul-de-sac,
Yeah.
and it ran from the end of the cul-de-sac out to the entrance of the street. And we jumped out of the swimming pool, went out to the front yard. All of our neighbors down that street were coming outside because they all saw the light, they all felt the boom, heard
Mhm.
the boom, and nobody knew what it was. Nobody knew what it was. It was just a weird, strange experience.
It's weird, yeah. But that street was known for being weird. There was a lot of paranormal activity that happened on that
Yeah.
street, that whole area. And each of our houses, as far as I know, we lived next to witches. There was ghosts across the street from us. Like there was, there was just a lot of weird stuff. I never looked into it. Like I never asked. Like, were any of the other streets equally haunted, or was it just ours?
I think it was just ours, man. We were the lucky ones.
Yeah. But like just thinking back on it, just looking at it, it looked like a creepy street because the way the cul-de-sac ended, it was not developed beyond that. So the cul-de-sac kind of ended at this like chain link fence, and beyond that, it was just kind of like this
Tall grass.
like tall grass lot. of
Yeah.
like trash that would like kind of accumulate. Beyond that, a little bit to the, what was that? The left. I'm not good with direction right now, so I'm not going to be good with direction in my memory. But like there was also like a forest kind of area, like a woods area. It seemed like ghosts would come out of there too.
Oh, here we go. GJ says, well, whatever it was, they say it was big, quiet, and flying over their heads. It has feathers on its wings, and the wingspan was huge, but the strange thing about it was that it had a bluish glow to it.
Ooh.
That's interesting. You know, on the belief hole, we've heard a couple of stories about a big bird. Do you remember that, Justin? Like, there was this story about a girl who was walking. Was she walking through? I think she's walking through like a field or something.
Mm-hmm.
And when she got to a certain spot where there was like a large bird sitting there.
Oh, it was like a forest area.
Yeah.
She was walking and it was just kind of sitting there. It wasn't moving and it wasn't like looking at her or anything. She just kind of walked around it. Is that the one you're talking about?
I think so.
But yeah.
Yeah, I know. Like in South Texas, where we grew up, there was the story of the thunderbird in that area. That was a really huge bird that would fly around.
Mm-hmm.
Some people thought it was a pterodactyl, but no, this is interesting though. Like had a bluish glow to it.
Yeah. Where does GJ live again? What city is he?
I don't know. GJ, you're in Texas, aren't you?
I thought he was in Texas.
You don't have to dox yourself and tell us what city exactly, but
Dox yourself. Dox the creature.
He says, this was right outside my house, and the kids came in the house very nervous, saying, oh my God.
Yeah, man. When these things happen, yeah, you get freaked out real easy.
Definitely. Yeah, I don't think I've told the story here on our channel. I told it on the 6x6 channel, but I told the story about my ghost experience where I went into this haunted house. Let's see here. I'm in Texas and I live near Lake Conroe.
Conroe? I don't know where that is. Interesting. Ben, you want to tell that story in its entirety?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so when I was a kid, I was probably like 10, 11 years old, and my dad used to remodel houses for it's in Conroe, Texas, he says. So my dad used to remodel houses down in South Texas, Edinburgh, Texas, and my cousin was visiting, so my cousin and I went with my dad to work, and he was remodeling this house of this old man who had passed away. And so my cousin and I are wrestling, out in the living room, and down the hallway. So look down the hallway to the right is where my dad was working. He was painting a room. On the left-hand side in the hallway was another room where the radio was. So we're out there wrestling in the living room, and all of a sudden, like, the radio changes from like our favorite rock station to classical music. And we're kids, so we didn't notice right away, but eventually we did notice. And so we go down the hallway, and I'm like, hey, Dad, did you change the radio station? He goes, no, I thought you guys did. So we thought, Dad's messing with us. So we change the radio station back to, our rock station. So we go back down the hallway, back down to the living room. And then this time we're kind of playing, but kind of not. We're kind of both curious. Like, is my dad going to sneak across, the hallway? And, and sure enough, the radio station changes again from rock to classical music. And so we look, and my dad went nowhere near the other room. And so we went back down the hallway and told my dad, like, the radio station changed again. And he's like, well, the old man that lived here, he liked classical music. And that gave us goosebumps. That's creepy.
Hey, Dad.
Yeah. Oh, let's see here. GJ says, we kept talking about what we saw, and the look in my kid's face were undeniably frightening. I said to them, I believe in what you guys saw. I just wish I could have seen it myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Conroe is north of Houston. I'm sorry, GJ. I'm really bad at geography stuff. Like I don't even know my own state. I don't. I know where I am, and that's about as good as I can get. But yeah. So yeah, it's north of Houston. I don't hear a lot of stuff come out of Houston as far as like scary stories and stuff. It's always very south, Texas. But that's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. How far away is Converse from there?
Converse. Where is Converse?
Converse, Texas. I know it's east of San Antonio.
East. Let me see.
East of San Antonio, Converse, Texas. That's where the Converse werewolf was seen. But anyways,
it's a distance away from it. But,
oh, it is? Okay.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah. What were we saying?
Oh yeah. So just to finish off my story, so like later on, my dad, because that was the first creepy thing. There was three things. That was the first creepy thing that happened. The radio changing. Second creepy thing, my dad ran out of painter's tape, and so he's like, I need to run over to like Ace Hardware to get some more painter's tape. Don't come in this room. Don't touch the walls. And we're like, okay, yeah, that's fine. We're playing in the living room anyway. Dad leaves. Dad comes back. He calls us over. He's like, hey, did you guys touch the walls? And we're like, no. Why? He's because there's handprints all over the wall. Nope, wasn't us. So he paints over. You know, he has to paint over the walls. I don't know if he believed us or not, but he would later on because when we left, he told us that he had to paint the walls like 3 times because those handprints kept coming back. And he knew it wasn't us. But at that point. So creepy thing number 3. My cousin and I go into this storage room. It was like another bedroom, but it had hardwood floors. And up in the corner of the room was this huge mirror, just kind of catty-cornered, looking out at us. And there was a wheelchair in there. So my cousin jumps in the wheelchair, and he starts, rolling around in it, playing with it. And I'm like, my turn. So he jumps out. I get on the wheelchair. So wheelchair's facing this direction. By itself, the wheelchair turns, faces directly towards the mirror, and starts rolling right to the mirror. So my cousin freaks out because he can see it happening. He knows it's not me moving it. I'm freaked out. So he takes off, and I jump out of the chair, and I'm like, wait for me. He like closes the door behind him. Right? Like a good cousin.
He's done for. I'm out of here.
Take him, not me. So that's my ghost stories right there.
Yeah. So those hands that appeared on the wall, did you get to see them yourself?
If I did, I was 11 years old. I didn't pay too close attention to them.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't sure if they were small hands like ours would have been, or if they were large hands. Yeah.
Interesting. I wonder if they would have been like cute, like man-sized hands, like the old man might have.
Yeah. Yeah, and to kind of top it all off, like there was a dish of candies when we first got there. Now we're leaders. And I remember asking my dad, I was like, is it okay if we eat some candy? He's like, oh, it's old man's candy. He's like, all right, he's not going to need it anymore. so we ate some of his candy. And so,
you ate haunted candy? Oh my God.
Yeah. So we kind of joked that, no, he was upset that we ate his candy.
I was going to eat it later. It's a now and later. It just not specific about how much later you die. Man.
Yeah. So yeah, that was my ghost story.
And how old were you at that time again?
I must have been like 11 years old.
11? Okay.
Yeah. Maybe 10. I don't quite remember. But anyways, are you ready for one more?
Yep, let's do one more.
All right. Yeah, that's a really interesting story, GJ. Like I haven't heard about anything like that. I've heard about a lot of creepy things, but not a glowing bird.
A glowing bird. Yeah. I don't know. I've never heard of a glowing a glowing bird that hovers. What does it? Did he say hovers or just like flying above them and didn't make a sound?
Yeah, he said. Let's see what he said. It was big, quiet, and flying over their heads.
Big and quiet.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's really interesting, man.
Bluish glow. Yeah. That sounds cool though.
Yeah. All right, here we go. Last one.
Evening, folks. Got another story about the Alien Chronicles tonight. This one is pretty interesting. I'd been on that ranch for probably a year and a half when this come up. When I first moved down from Montana, everything happened pretty fast. You know, I was down in Denver to do some business. Knew I was going to have to relocate from Montana. It just cost too much to fly to Mexico every month from where my factory was. So anyhow, when I moved down, I had 2 horse trailers, one full of horses and one full of stuff. And I unpacked that stuff trailer and just put it all in the back of the shop when I got there. And it took months and months to go through everything and got rid of a bunch of stuff. They call that downsizing, I believe. But anyhow, once I'd gone through everything, I come up missing these mountain goat horns. And I was pretty disturbed about that. You know, it took me 17 years to draw that permit in Montana. And it was a tough hunt, and I didn't kill one until Thanksgiving Day and snow up to my waist. And I really valued those horns. So the horns come up missing, and so did an old 35 millimeter camera I'd packed around forever. I was pretty upset about it. We had a number of guys do day work on that ranch over the years. I kind of suspected this one kid, and I'd caught him stealing ranch fuel one time, and he had some tools in his truck that belonged to the ranch. So I suspected he'd stole those mountain goat horns and that camera. Thank God I never accused him of it, because I liked to dance back in those days, and I'd go to town every Friday night or Saturday night, and it was 70 miles to town, but I'd make that drive, and I've never been a drinker, so that wasn't an issue, but I'd go to town and dance till midnight or maybe later and then make that long drive home. And always went to town armed. In those days, I always carried a 45 mag, just a single action revolver, but I'd shot that thing since I was a teenager and was pretty comfortable with it. And I didn't carry a gun to be safe in the big city. I carried that gun for when I come home and maybe find aliens in my refrigerator or something. So anyhow, I get almost town this night, and I know I forgot that revolver. And I can just see it in my mind's eye sitting on the kitchen counter as I walked out the door. And I tried to put it out of my mind, danced for a little bit, and it just kept eating on me. And finally, I thought, I just got to go home. And so I left the bar early and made that long drive home. And I get home, parked, walked in the house, flip on the light, and look at the kitchen counter. And thank God there's my 44 mag laying there. Bad thing was, on this side of it is those missing mountain goat horns, and on this side of it's that missing camera. And I mean to tell you, I didn't know what to do. I picked up them horns and made sure, yeah, that's the goat I killed so many years ago. And I unloaded that gun, and I shook every round to make sure there was powder in it, loaded that gun back up. And I went through that whole house looking under beds and through the closets, even the kitchen counters, because I don't know what the hell happened that night. But anyhow, I'm glad I never accused that ranch kid of stealing my stuff. But the things I would have liked to accuse, I couldn't find them. And I got a hunch that there was something otherworldly involved in that deal that night. But anyhow, that's just another one of the Alien Chronicles. But come on back. I got dozens more stories like this. So.
So kleptomaniac aliens.
Yeah, but I guess with a conscience too, they return it at least.
It's like they're just taunting them just to show them they can.
Yeah, that seems to be like a lot of this this kind of activity is almost like just to prove to you that I can get this close to you, just to, you know, like it's like I said, like that psychological game or whatever that is, where they just like playing with their victim,
their prey.
Yeah, they're playing with their food almost, like if it's fear, they're trying to draw out of these people. There's that theory that these things feed on negative energy, fear, anger, whatever.
Yeah.
Gets you in that place to where they can manipulate you easier. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's Tony Merkel who's mentioned like sometimes these things seem to operate like they can't, like by certain rules, like they just can't outright attack you,
Yeah.
and so like the next best thing is just to taunt you and cause fear.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
Yeah. I like this guy though. I do like his stories.
Yeah, and we'll go through more next week. We'll do another
Yeah.
episode of this Fortean review and just go through. I want to say he's got at least another 4 or 5 stories, so that should be enough content for next week.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, man, we burned through these pretty quickly.
Yeah. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Hope you guys out there like them, GJ. Thanks for stopping by, man. Thanks for sharing your story too. That's a really interesting story.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I'm going to look into that, see if there's more sightings of like blue glowing birds or bird things, I guess, out there.
Yeah. All right. What are your final thoughts, Justin?
Final thoughts. Aliens are real, so carry a gun, I guess.
But would a gun even do anything?
Carry 2 guns just in case. No, yeah, I don't know, man. Like you hear a lot of stories about like just about anything that any kind of precaution you take malfunctions on you somehow, whether it's electronic or not. There's something to that, I guess. I don't know what it is though. I don't know what the connection would be, like how you can malfunction a something like a gun that works on combustion. It's just a pin hitting a little thing and then explodes and then it shoots a whatever. Somehow you can stop that from happening.
Projectile.
Yeah, it's a projectile. But yeah, I guess final thoughts. This is a really interesting guy to listen to. I do like his stories. I'm excited to hear more of them. I just really like. There is something like we had said. Like, just an older guy just telling a story. He just lends so much credibility to the kind of stuff he's talking about. Experience and maturity. Can't undervalue that.
Yeah. And if you like his storytelling, but you're not into the creepy stuff, he's got other stories too.
Mm-hmm.
So I would definitely check out his YouTube channel. I posted it down in the link below. He doesn't have a whole lot of viewers, and it's really interesting to me because he's such a great storyteller. And he's got a story about a bear that comes to attack him and maul him that he gets into a fight with. There's the buffalo that comes and the dog saves him.
Yeah.
He also did like stunt work with what's the name of the star of the Wyatt Earp movie?
The Kevin Costner?
Kevin Costner. Yeah, he worked with Kevin Costner on a couple of Western movies.
Oh.
Yeah. So he's got lots of stories to tell. So not just the paranormal UFO stuff, but there is more of that. We'll cover those next week.
Yeah.
So
interesting life.
Yeah, definitely. He's a really interesting guy. I really enjoyed his stories. So definitely just want to give him a shout out and send people his way.
Definitely.
And thanks everybody for joining us for another episode of Fortean Review.
For spending the Saturday with us. Everybody have a good day, good weekend. We'll see you next week.
Yep, we'll see you next week. Bye, everybody.